evening. Notice is hereby given that the mayor and city council of the city of Nogales will meet in public hearing and regular session on Wednesday, today, January 11th, in the City Hall complex council chambers. I call this meeting to order. And Madam Clerk, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And remain standing, please, for invocation. Pastor. Pastor Asad Crespo from el Centro Familiar Cristiano will do the invocation, please. Por favor,
Buenas tardes a todos. Para mí es un honor y una responsabilidad muy grande que en este día tan importante para ustedes y para nuestra comunidad de aquí en Nogales, unirme en una oración juntamente con ustedes para pedirle a Dios su dirección y su fortaleza, pero también su bendición para nuestra ciudad. La Biblia dice: procurad la paz de la ciudad a la cual os hice transportar, rogad por ella a Jehová, porque en la paz de la ciudad vosotros tendréis paz. Porque mis pensamientos que yo tengo acerca de vosotros, dice el Señor, son pensamientos de paz y no del mal, para darles paz y esperanza. El Señor dice de la siguiente manera: clama a mí y yo te responderé y te enseñaré cosas grandes y difíciles que tú no conoces. Oremos. Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo y en la tierra y en todo lugar, en esta tarde yo te pido, Señor, tu bendición y tu dirección para las personas que tienen autoridad y tienen la responsabilidad de dirigir el destino de nuestra ciudad, nuestra comunidad, nuestro amado pueblo de Nogales. Te damos muchas gracias, Señor, por este momento histórico que estamos viviendo y que somos parte de ello, de una o de otra manera. Autoridades aquí presentes y personas de nuestra comunidad que hemos venido, Señor, solamente para ser dirigidos por ti. Te pido pues tu bendición, tu fortaleza en cada decisión que se va a tomar. Ahora te pido que a través de tu Santo Espíritu seas con nosotros y en nosotros. En el nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo. Amén. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Pastor. Pastor, le quiero regalar esta parte. Un pin para que le veas tus pasiones entre amigos. Gracias. Muchas gracias. Item number 4, Mayor's History Fun Facts. Are we ready for this one? We got 2. This one and next month, and that's it for the fun facts. Because that's the beginning of our 100th year, going into our second 100 year. So that trip to Hawaii is still on. We still have to find the funding for it, but forget it. Okay. Several changes have come about since 100 years ago, when Nogales was a very small town. The city limit was set at Doe Street before 1930. The arroyo was open and through the town until 1932. There were 2 disastrous floods in 1930 and 1931, both in the month of August, when water cascaded north from Nogales, Sonora through Nogales, Arizona. After 2 annual floods in a row, it was apparent both cities had to take control of the water flow, and we're still having problems with the water. Let's control better. Mayor Harry Carnes met with Mayor Alfonso Villaseñor of Nogales, Sonora, to plan a drainage system. The plan called for covering the arroyo downtown, but was opened just north of Sacred Heart. That plan was taken care of in 1930. The section was later covered The second section was later covered in front of the high school, remember that area, covered in the early 1970s. Mariposa Road came about in the late 1960s, early 1970. Both the Mastic and Mariposa Ted Wilson ranches were developed as part of the Mariposa Gate west of Nogales. Mr. Sherman Montgomery worked for the Mastics and developed the shopping center where the Grant's store was, and later Kmart and the second Safeway were located where the Fitness Express and Psych centers are now. The second stage came later, just west of the center. That is where the Safeway now is. Since then, several buildings have been constructed and the area has grown. The Nogales West area was annexed at about the time later the city, about the same time, later the city limits was extended to where it's now. The biggest change for Nogales came with the construction of I-19 freeway. Discussions began in 1964. The original idea was for it to stop north of town, which was the Mariposa Road. But 4 local businessmen wanted I-19 brought downtown, which unfortunately led to the destruction of the beautiful Sonoita Street area, bringing the freeway to the end of Crawford Street. The question, before we go to that, and planning continues, because tonight we have a section of our agenda that will be for future planning. So the growth of Nogales will continue, but very well planned growth. So this council hopefully will be part of that growth in the near future. Question, as I said earlier, the planning for the drainage system was done by both Mayor Carnes and Mayor Villaseñor. Do you know who designed the arroyo system we have today? That's the question. Since I'm sure you did, he worked there. He says. We're I don't know. This was. Remember, I said it was in the 30s. So you guys, anybody remember? Vice Mayor? No? Anybody in the audience? No, that's what I thought too, but not until I got the. Actually, the answer is Mayor Carnes. He was a civil engineer, among other skills. It is understood that he also supervised most of the first phase of the infrastructure project. So he was the mayor that was involved with the two big floods with Mayor Villaseñor, and he himself was the engineer in that project. So I don't think anybody's going to be going to Hawaii on February 1. Oh, that's going to be. I should start giving out some homework to some of these people. Oh, Mr. Machado. Okay, item number 5, call to the public. And we'll start with, we'll start with, is it Jaime Olais? No? Sí? Yes. Please. ¿Hablar usted? Yeah. Come to the podium. Please give us your address and your name for the record.
My name is Jaime Olais. I live in 2757 North MacArthur Drive, that's in the Nogales. Please excuse my English, I don't speak very well. But yes, I have a point that I want to either make a comment on this meeting or maybe on the future council meetings. And the question is that when we bought most of the properties that were bought in Meadow Hills in the last 15, 20 years was mainly because of the golf course. The area was looked very nice, looks good. I think it's one of the best places in Nogales for living. And we chose to buy a property there 8 years ago. We built our house there. and it was a nice place. Now, after the city or whoever, I don't know what happened, they closed the golf course. The streets are in awful shape. There's no lights. The public services are almost none, except for the trash. They pick up the trash every 2 days during the week, which is fine. We don't have any problem with the water or the gas or electricity. But the cleaning is almost non-existent. And still, our property tax is one of the highest in the city, and I'm not complaining about that right now, but I do complain about keep paying the same property tax that high when we have a different scenario today. So that's my question, sir.
Okay.
I want to know if there's any plans to do something with the golf course or what's going to happen.
You know, during call to the public, we can't, as a council, we cannot discuss certain things, but I can tell you as a mayor that we are working on that. The golf course wasn't closed by the city. It was closed basically by the person that had it, the company that had the golf course.
Okay.
And what we're dealing right now is hopefully in the future having somebody bid on it so it can be reopened, the golf course and the country club both, and the restaurant. And so we're hoping for that to happen one of these days soon. So that's as far as I can take you on that. Part of the cleaning, sir, I'm sure the city manager heard that, and he'll address that with city staff on the cleaning part of the streets and
Okay.
other areas. But you will see something in the near future about the golf course.
Good.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just one point of clarification. Mr. Elias, just one point of clarification. The city of Nogales does not assess a property tax. So the property tax that you're paying is a property tax levied and assessed by other regulatory agencies,
Right.
School districts, fire districts, or colleges, or whatever. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah, I understand that, sir. But still, being in a community where the property tax is so high, and suddenly losing the nice part of the neighborhood, I mean, one thing doesn't match the other, so that's my our concern.
I can understand that, and we've been approached about that situation at the country club at the golf course. Among the people, residents of Middle Hills too. So we're hoping that we can get somebody to work it and get it operation.
All right, Mr. Mayor, just one more.
Yes, sir.
Please. Did you provide your phone number on your card?
Yes, sir, I did.
I will give you a phone call and give you an update on what's going on out there at the golf course.
Very
Okay?
good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Next person is Roberto Guevara. Unisource.
Hi, my name is Roberto Guevara. As many of you know, I work with Unisource. I'm responsible for gas and electric operations. And today, I'm here to give you, for two different reasons. The first one, to give you an update. Back in the summer of last year, 2011, I was here to describe the plan for Middle Hills when we had those issues with our energy supplies with that subdivision. Well, I'm here happy to report that that has been taken care of. The temporary facilities that we set up, the power poles and everything have been removed, and the underground facilities have been replaced. So we finished that ahead of schedule, and we decided to go with directional boring, and that happened to be very effective. I think the impact on the community was minimum. We didn't receive any complaints at all during the process, so hopefully that worked out well for everyone else. So thank you for your support in that hard time that we had. And thank you very much for all the help that we received from all of you. The second part, next week, we're going to be doing a fire drill at our Valencia substation. The Valencia substation is located right there across the street from Walmart on Grant and White Park, Grand Avenue and Grant and White Park. And the purpose is to practice in case we have a fire there or an emergency of any kind, so we can improve our communication not only with the emergency responders, but also in between the different groups in the company that are part of that. On this effort is going to be the fire department, police department, I know traffic control, and basically the city of Nogales. On our end, we have our dispatch center from Tucson, substation people, operations, distribution, gas operations. Everybody's going to be there being part of that so we can learn and improve how we respond to an emergency like that. And we are already having a bunch of support and help from City of Nogales, and I just want to not only thank you, but also let you know what we're doing, and hopefully that's going to be successful for everybody.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next call to the public is Maria Lopez.
The only reason I passed the form right now is because I'm realizing that under agenda items 10 and 11, I asked to be on the agenda, and
You can speak during that.
thank you very much.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to make sure.
All right. Is there anybody else called to the public? Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here as Chief of Police to introduce Officer Victor Yanez, who has served tours of Iraq and Afghanistan, and as a result of that, Operation Iraqi Freedom and the Nogales Police Department, the City of Nogales, supporting his service time over there. He's presenting the police department with this plaque of service from the government, as well as a flag to commemorate that event. So I wanted to present this and thank Officer Yanez for his service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service, and I'm authorized to give you 1 free year membership at the VFW. Okay, so anytime you want to join up, this officer will give you 1 free year.
And I really want to say thank you for the support. I mean, I couldn't make my mission complete with the Navy if it wasn't for the department and for the city. I mean, from everybody, down to, you know, the support and the help.
Thank you very much. Mr. Diaz, can I have a year or two? I never got it. Two honorable discharges, you know. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Call to the public? Hearing none. Go to item number 6, consent agenda. We'll be going on consent agenda items A through D. Members of the council, do I have a motion? So moved, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 7, we'll be going into public hearing, water and wastewater rate study. You want to speak on the water rates? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as a way to open the public hearing portion of this agenda up, Mr. Dan Jackson, who you've been introduced to before, is here to make one more presentation, make sure that those who are here to participate in that public hearing have the benefit of that information, and then we can move forward with the rest of the comment period.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Dan Jackson. I'm Managing Director of Economist.com. We're an economic and financial consulting firm that was engaged by the City of Nogales to assist it in its planning, its long-term financial planning for its water and wastewater utility. I'm accompanied here with Ms. Jolynn Raines of Economist.com. Together we did the lion's share of the study that we're about to present to you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight about what by any definition is a very difficult subject, and that is the increasing cost of water and wastewater service throughout the United States. Here in the city of Nogales and really throughout the United States, we've really been blessed by the fact that water has been plentifully available at a remarkably low cost for much of the past century. But as we enter the 21st century, water service, while still being plentifully available, is simply becoming more expensive for everyone. This is a simple fact, and it's true for a lot of reasons that I'm going to make plain in this hearing tonight. And many of these reasons are simply beyond the control of a utility to do anything about. These cost increases have affected not only the city of Nogales, but utilities throughout Arizona. That's led many of these utilities to make some very difficult decisions in recent years. As a result, you've seen the average cost of water and wastewater service here in the state of Arizona increase by 5 to 6% every year over the last decade. Increasing water costs are happening for cities from Kingman to Page to Prescott to Phoenix to everywhere in the state of Arizona. Now here in the city of Nogales, the city has done a remarkable job in keeping your rates low. You have rates that are virtually the lowest in the state of Arizona. Your average monthly bill for water and sewer service is 40% below the state average. And you haven't had a rate increase in almost a decade. So while everybody else is raising the rates by 5 to 6% every year, you've managed to hold your rates for the past decade at the same level that they were almost 10 years ago. So there aren't a whole lot of cities in Arizona. In fact, I can't think of any that can make those 3 points. So clearly you've gone above and beyond the call of duty in helping your ratepayers. But there comes a time when you have to address economic reality. As costs keep going up, you simply have to continue to recover revenues to meet all of those costs. You can't go without revenue adjustments forever. To do so risks both financial hardship and a lower quality of service here in the city. And that leads to the purpose for my presentation here tonight. It is to present a long-term financial plan for the city's water and wastewater utility. This plan will get you the revenue you need to run your water and sewer operation while to the best extent possible minimizing the impact of any adjustments on your ratepayers. So, I've got a few charts I'd like to go over to help emphasize some of the points I'd like to make tonight. I think one of the first questions everybody asks is, why? Why do water and wastewater costs go up? I mean, shouldn't water is the same as it was 10 years ago, why shouldn't it cost the same? Well, keep this in mind. You try to run your water and wastewater operation like a business. You want the revenues from your water rates and your wastewater rates to cover the costs that you incur in providing that service. Well, like any other business, because of inflation, the costs go up by 3 to 4% a year. The cost of everything goes up by 3 to 4% a year, and that impacts a water and wastewater utility just like it impacts everything else. Also, when you think about water and sewer systems, they're very expensive. It costs a lot of money to put water lines in the ground, to build wastewater treatment plants, to build those pump stations, to get that water to you. Well, these, like any other asset, these assets need to be repaired. And it costs a lot of money to do those repairs. Now, if you don't do these repairs, it's going to affect the quality of your service. The water will get dirtier, the pressure will go down, and you simply won't have the same quality of service that you're used to today. Those factors together, increasing costs such as things like insurance, workers' compensation, chemicals, electricity, gasoline, all of those costs are going up at very high rates. And all of these are things that you really have no control over. And as utilities face these increasing costs throughout the country, they've had to implement a series of rate adjustments to make sure that they've got the revenues to cover these costs. Now, water and sewer isn't really unique. Can you think of a single commodity that hasn't gone up in costs in the last 10 years? Think about it. Everything from a loaf of bread to a hamburger at your local fast food joint, to a carton of milk, to medical care, and especially to a gallon of gas. You know, 10 years ago, the cost of a barrel of oil was $10. Today, it's $100. So, gasoline costs go up. Gasoline and oil is a major component of the cost of water and wastewater service. So as those costs go up, that's going to increase costs for the water and sewer division. The bottom line is this. We live in a system where costs go up inevitably over time. And utilities have to deal with that, even though it comes to making some very difficult decisions on behalf of that utility. So how have you dealt with this? How have you dealt with the fact that these costs have been going up over the last decade? Well, you've made some very difficult decisions. You've made budget cuts, you've made cost reductions, and you have deferred repairs, and you have deferred system improvements. In other words, you've done everything you can to keep these cost increases to a minimum in the water and sewer utility. Another thing that you've done is that the city has sought for and obtained $59 million in U.S. government grants to increase the regional wastewater treatment plant. Without those government grants, your costs would have gone up even more. And I think that the fact that you were able to get this grant money was a vote of confidence by the federal government in the ability of the city of Nogales to run its water and wastewater system. So you haven't sat there and let these cost increases affect you. You've done everything in your power to try to minimize the impact on the utility itself. So what have been the results of your efforts? Well, because of your very strong and diligent efforts to keep your costs down, you've been able to go without a water rate increase for 7 years and without a wastewater increase for 15 years. Economist.com does water and wastewater rate studies for cities all over the nation. We've done probably 200 of these studies over the past 20 years. I can't think of a single utility that we have done work for that has been able to go 15 years without a rate increase. It's nothing short of remarkable. Because remember, the average utility is increasing its rates by 5 to 6% a year. So over the last 15 years, that means that they've increased their rates by 75 to 80%, and your wastewater rates are the same that they were in Bill Clinton's first term as president. As a result, your rates are 40% below the state average and are among the lowest in the state. As a matter of fact, I can't find another city whose rates are lower than yours. As good as this news has been, you have finally now reached the point where you can't cut anymore. Your losses are mounting and more revenue is badly needed. That's the main reason that we're here before you tonight. Just as an example, I said a minute ago that your rates were 40% below the state average. The average residential user here in the city of Nogales uses about 10,000 gallons of water and wastewater service a month. That's a very typical average for a residential family of 4. Here in the city of Nogales, a residential family that uses 10,000 gallons pays about $41.40 for water and wastewater service. The average in the state of Arizona is $68.62. Your rates are almost $30 below the state average. Furthermore, when you compare yourself to some of your neighbors, you're the lowest around. This chart right here shows a comparison of 10,000 gallons of usage between yourself here in the city of Nogales and other cities such as San Luis and Quartzsite and Snowflake and Yuma, Prescott Valley, Flagstaff, Prescott, Lake Havasu City. Look at you. You're the lowest among all of them. So I think that when you look at your rate structure, I think the argument can very reasonably be made that you've done everything in your power to keep your rates as low as possible for as long as possible. So, what has that meant though? I mean, despite your efforts, a lot of costs have continued to go up. What has that done to your water and sewer fund? Well, right now, your water and wastewater fund is to the point where it's starting to lose money. You are losing money on every gallon of water and wastewater service you sell right now. Now, like any business, you can't do that forever. You can't sell a product at below its cost forever. Furthermore, you have no ability at this point in time, under the rates that you're charging right now, to pay for the capital repairs that the system is going to need in the next decade. In the next 10 years, you're going to need to do some water line replacement. You're going to need to overhaul some of your lift stations. You're going to need to put some money into your system to keep it operating. Well, right now, you can't do that under the current rate structure. Under the rate structure that we're proposing for you tonight, you will be able to do that. So, just as an example, in the last year, your revenues were about $4.4 million and your expenses were $5 million. Your net loss was about $560,000. No business can lose that magnitude of money forever without there being severe financial consequences. And not only are you not making enough money to meet your operating expenses, as I said a minute ago, you're looking at $16 million in the need for capital improvements over the next decade. This is not unusual for a system your size. A lot of the utilities we work for around the state of Arizona have similar capital needs because, like everywhere, these systems get old, They wear out, lines need to be replaced, they need to be fixed, and you need to put money into it. This amount of money is not unreasonable for a system your size, but it's money that will enable you to continue to provide a high quality of service. Without it, the level of service is going to deteriorate. That's one of the reasons why we're here before you tonight, to let you know that the rate structure and the revenue plan that we're presenting you tonight will enable you to fund this capital improvement plan over the next decade. This chart right here shows what your costs are today and what your costs are expected to be tomorrow. Right now it's costing you about $5 million to run your water and sewer utility. We're projecting over the next decade that your costs are going to increase every year until by the year 2020 your costs are going to be a little bit over $8 million. So your costs are high today, they're going to be higher tomorrow. That is a simple statement of fact. So let's cut to the chase. Let's talk about our rate proposal. We will come right out and tell you and recommend to you a series of rate adjustments that will end your losses and that will enable the city to repair your water and wastewater system. We're going to recommend that you implement a series of modest rate adjustments beginning in February 2012 and then continuing in October of 2012, February 2013, and then February of 2014 and 2015. What is the impact of this rate plan? The initial rate impact will be for most residential ratepayers. It will result in an increase in their monthly bills of between $2 and $3. This is a very important point to make because whenever we talk about rate increases, it's easy to think about, to get the idea of the magnitude of the rate increase out of proportion. And it is, of course, it's never an easy thing to ask ratepayers to pay any more for water and sewer service. But the idea of a phased implementation of a new rate plan is that it will enable ratepayers to gradually adjust their household budgets to meet the needs of the future. What that means is that we phase in a set of gradual rate adjustments, the first of which will result in an increase of between $2 and $3 a month for most ratepayers. To illustrate this, a ratepayer who uses 10,000 gallons of water and 5,000 gallons of wastewater, again, that is a typical average residential ratepayer. Their bill would go from $35.60 to $38.37, an increase of $2.77. Now keep in mind what I just told you. This is an average. What's the definition of the word average? It means some are going to be above and some are going to be below. People that use more than 10,000 gallons a month would see their bill go up a little bit more than $2.77 a month. People that use less than 10,000 gallons, which are primarily your lower income and your fixed income people, they might see, if they use less than 10,000 gallons a month, they'd see an increase of less than $2.77 a month. But the thing to keep in mind is that when we're talking about the magnitude of the rate adjustment, the first increase is about $2.50 a month. To keep this in perspective, that is equivalent to about 2 of these. This is a bottle of water that we purchased at the local Walmart not too long ago. They cost, about $1.50. You would get 10,000 gallons of water and sewer service for an increased cost equivalent to 2 of these. Now, as I said, we're talking about a series of gradual annual adjustments. The first adjustment would take bills up to $38.37. The next adjustment would increase by about another $2.77 a month, up to $41.15. And then in February 2013, the average bill would go to $46.59. To keep this in perspective, by 2013, the state average is expected to go up to $75 a month. So despite these rate adjustments, your rate plan is projected to still be about 30 to 40% below the state average and still be among the lowest in the state of Arizona. So despite these rate adjustments and despite the fact that we're proposing that you do rate increases, a lot of other cities around the state of Arizona are going to be doing the same thing. I just want to summarize this prepared presentation by making a couple of remarks. Again, I want to emphasize, why are these rate adjustments necessary? Why are we coming before you and asking you to make this very difficult decision? Well, the first reason is quite simply that your water and wastewater fund is losing money right now. All you're asking your ratepayers to do is pay what it is costing you to provide that service. You are a non-profit entity. You're not in here to make money for stockholders. You're here just to cover your costs. The rate plan that we present to you today is just asking the ratepayers to pay you what it's costing you to provide that service. Secondly, rate adjustments are needed because repairs and system improvements are going to need to be made. Right now, you don't have the ability to make it. And if you have some kind of catastrophic failure in your water and sewer system, then you could be in real trouble without this rate plan. A third reason is that costs have been going up and costs are going to continue to go up. And a rate plan needs to recognize that. And finally, without this rate plan, without the ability to pay even your operating costs, and without your ability to pay these capital improvements, the quality of service may be harmed. I want to close this presentation by making a couple of final comments. Are there benefits to a rate plan? Yes, it is never an easy thing to do to ask people to pay more. But this rate plan will benefit the city of Nogales as a whole. It will benefit the city by enabling the city to pay its costs. It will benefit the city by enabling the city to improve its system. It will benefit the city by allowing the city to qualify for continued grant funding. There is still grant money available that might pay for a portion of your capital improvements. But their grant money will not be available if you do not have a rate plan that covers your costs. Because the federal government will come in and they will say, look, we'll help you, but we're not going to solve your problems for you. We will give you grant money, but we expect you to pay your share of your costs. And if you have a rate plan in place that does not pay your share of your costs, we, the federal government, are not going to come in and bail you out. So your ability to get grant money is contingent on your ability to have a rate plan in place that covers all of your costs. I want to thank you for listening to me and for allowing us to make this presentation for you tonight. I applaud your ability to stand up and make these very difficult decisions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Members of the council? Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, Mr. Dilly, was this pegged out for a 3-year period? Now, at the end of 3 years, when it comes back to the city council for either continuing increases or for stabilizing the price at the end of 3 years? The way we're looking at it, at the end of 3 years, will the enterprise fund be able to maintain itself?
The plan that's being presented to you tonight is a multi-year adjustment to do a correction from the fact that we haven't changed rates for so many years in the past. So it's a corrective move, it's a course correction for the city of Nogales. It is specific to a time frame and a rate. So once that time frame expires, there is no programmed increase that's before you tonight. So if there's any other move to adjust rates, either up or down, it would have to come back before council at that point in time.
And the second question is with IBWC, we're paying 23% of our sewer rates, right? With the
on the treatment plant side.
On the
yes.
treatment plant side.
Yes.
And I understand that you've been in negotiations with IBWC to reduce that rate.
We have been in negotiations with IBWC to help them sharpen their pencil. Not necessarily address the 23%, but we felt that it was easier for us to critique the bills that they were bringing to us than it was to try to argue the 23%. And what we were finding is that they were forecasting a budget cost to us that we felt was inflated based off of the 23%. And so we've been continually pressing them to give us more realistic numbers, and for the most part of last year we felt that was working. We just received, I know it's off topic, but we just received an invoice from them as a year-end adjustment that we're trying to analyze to see, you know, if they're trying to, you know, put some more on there in a different way. So that has yet to be determined. But our effort with them was to try to make sure that we were getting pencils sharpened and we were getting exact numbers and not just from the hip type estimates in terms of what the costs were going to be. The issue of the 23% is set a little bit more in stone and would take a much higher level of decision making than what's present at staff. And so we've been working with staff and not necessarily at the higher level.
And how would, let's just say that in the near future, let's say within the year or 2 years, that IBWC would give us an adjustment?
Downward?
Downward.
If that was the case, then the council certainly has the ability to come and revisit these numbers. But as it sits today, the only thing we could assume in putting these forecasts into place, these models, these financial models, was our relationship as it stood today with IBWC. So, and those are the numbers that Mr. Jackson, the economist.com group used.
Now, we also have, Mr. Dilly, a program for the elderly and the poor, right? Or the senior citizens.
Yes, we do, and we have had for several years now.
And that program there, is it being used by the people or not? Or do we know how many people are actually taking advantage of that program?
I'll have to defer to our finance staff. I know that it is in use. I can also say pretty comfortably that it's probably not being used as much as it could. It could be, but there are users for it. Either of you two want to try to address that, please? While Angel's getting up to respond, Mr. Jackson's recommendation also factors in that same senior citizen or low income discount in these rates. So the program stays in effect even with the new rate adjustment that you have, and under the same criteria, senior citizens or people that qualify could still receive a discount.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the Council. I'm Angel Suarez, Finance Assistant Director. In response to Mr. Menesen's question, yes, it's being used. The exact number, I don't have it, but it's around 700 accounts.
There's 700 accounts that are
residential.
And basically, what kind of discount do they get?
They get a 30% discount on water consumption up to a 13,000 gallons. And 30% on solar.
And that will still be in effect?
Yes.
So in other words, if it's going up $2.77 for these roughly 700 people, it would roughly be going up $1.70 or something like that.
$1.70 to $1.80.
Yeah, $1.70 to $1.80 on their bill.
Yes, we'll take off the 30% off.
Right. And all the applications for that are done through your office?
Yes.
And that's,
This is something to do with Mr. Jackson, but a lot of my constituents have been calling me up, asking me this why have not been, people that owe the money on water rate, on the water bills are not being paid, and we've taken up their tab. See, how much do they owe people that have not paid? Do you have a hard figure on it, the amount of
I'm sorry, you meant people from
yeah, they haven't paid
water
just on
consumers?
What Mr. Parada I think is saying is he wants to know how much delinquent accounts you have.
delinquent accounts on water.
Every 45 days, every delinquent account, we turn them off until they pay.
Okay, but right now we're almost up to date on this, making the collections or not?
Yes, because where we have the ability to close the water, to shut the water, we do it.
Okay, how about the sewer? People that
The
don't.
sewer, unfortunately, we don't have that ability to treat it the same way as we treat the water area. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Joey.
Councilman Prada, when I came on with the city, there was an excessive, in my opinion, bad debt balance that we had been maintaining on our books. Since early this summer, we have engaged in a collection agency to deal with that bad debt, and I think we're being very responsive that way. I need to ask Dan a question relative to your financial modeling. To what extent did bad debt factor into the recommended rate adjustment? And the answer that I'm looking for is one that would address Councilmember Parada's question and I guess slash concern, that being the rates that are being recommended wouldn't be what they are if there was a better rate of collection on the bad debt side.
Yes. When a water and wastewater utility develops its budget or its costs, it has what's called a reserve for uncollectibles. In other words, you anticipate that a certain portion of your bills won't be paid. Happens to every utility. Every utility in the country is going to have accounts that are written off. To the extent that you're able to minimize or minimize the amount of accounts that you have to write off, that's a little bit more money that you would be able to collect, and that of course would be beneficial. But based on the rate analysis that we did, even if you collected every dollar that was owed to you and you had zero write-offs, which is not a realistic possibility, but even if you did, it would not negate the need for these rate increases. Obviously it would help, and every utility has a responsibility to try to operate itself in the most effective way possible. So staff has to continue to make efforts to ensure that uncollectible accounts are to the best extent possible collected, and I think that they're definitely doing that. But the bottom line is that even if every account were collected, it wouldn't eliminate by any stretch of the imagination the need for these rate adjustments.
So, Mr. Jackson, let me just clarify that point that you just made. So, if we had zero bad debt, would there still be a need to do a rate adjustment?
Absolutely, yes.
And that's to cover operations, as you
Right.
pointed out in your presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Parada and the rest of the mayor and council, we recognize that there are some accounts where the city has decided to provide a service, but it's only part of the pie type service. In other words, we're only providing sewer to some residential areas and not water. Obviously, on the water side, it's very easy to control when you can turn the water off and get people to come in and pay. We recognize that, and it's something that all of us recognize in terms of being a problem. But it's our problem, and one of the ways that we're dealing with that is because we can't shut the water off, and the private utility that operates the water isn't being very cooperative with us, we send these accounts to collections, and they run the risk of getting their credit history damaged and everything that we can do on that end. But it's impossible for us, and it's certainly not feasible for us to go out and start blocking off sewer lines. It just doesn't work that way. So, but to directly answer the question, from what I hear Mr. Jackson saying, it's not a factor, or at least an unreasonable factor in the recommendation to move forward with these rate adjustments.
Mr. Doing, on that same vein there, how many of these accounts do we have that are just that are not paying? I mean, I would agree that most of the accounts I think would pay, but I mean, do we have 10%, 20% of those accounts that only have a sewer? Is it a big percentage, or is it a small percentage of people that are not paying?
Well, we have around 700 accounts in the area where we don't have the ability to turn the water off. Out of those 700, probably 20%, 20 to 25% are
approximately 150 people.
Approximately, it's I don't have the exact number,
And
but
how many accounts do we have in total, Mr. Suarez?
so or for the area of Valverde?
No, total.
Total, it's around 5,500 for the city plus those services.
Okay. So a very small percentage.
Just a quick, is Chula Vista also on there? Do they get our water and sewer, or they just
sewer.
get?
No,
Just sewer.
Sewer service. In some areas, sanitation service.
They also get garbage pickup?
No,
In some areas.
Not Chula Vista.
Not Chula Vista,
Not Chula
but in
Vista.
some areas for the Valverde.
What the Valle Verde area?
It's just sewer and sanitation.
How about Meadow Hills? Do we have anybody that connect up to the sunlight?
No, Meadow Hills, it's we supply the water, sewer in some areas, and sanitation.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Also, on Bennett, where we supply just sewer and garbage, is everybody we're supplying garbage, are they paying garbage?
Well, we have the same problem. Out of the 7 accounts, in some areas, we provide the sewer and the sanitation services. And some of them, we find in the same area that Mr. Dillon was.
But are
we
more and
sent
more
those-
people starting to pay that, or are we still stagnant on the collection?
No, we're still.
Pretty much stagnant?
Yeah, we've turned those over to a collection agency.
Yes,
And so now now it becomes between the collection agency and them. If they come into us at that point in time, it kind of makes it moot for us. And so it's really a relationship between them and the collection agency at that point.
And they were turned over to collection agencies when? 6 months
Summer?
ago?
Last summer.
Last summer?
And have we seen any results from that or not?
I don't know, I have to. Have our collections, Terry, have our collections?
Yeah, we.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Yes, we have seen some collection from Valley Collections. We turned over some accounts back in June of 2011, and we saw some minimal results. Latter part of last year, I want to say month of October, they collected a couple of $1,000 on some of those accounts. We can definitely bring you an update as to where we are on those accounts in terms of how many are still outstanding, how much is owed, and how much we collected altogether since engaging with Valley Collection since last year.
Mr. Mayor and Council, just to reemphasize what Mr. Jackson was saying about the impact of these bad debts, these bad debt accounts on his recommendation. I'm just running those numbers, and it's like 0.02% of our total accounts that are tied up in this particular example of bad debt. So it's really not, it's a nominal amount and something reasonably to be expected in any course of business.
Well, yeah, but here I think the problem is if everybody's going to be chipping in, let's say, those people should.
Absolutely,
Right?
and that's why we're taking
the attitude that they don't want to do it. Well, maybe, we should take more drastic measures, right? Whatever those drastic measures would be.
Sure.
We just want to make sure, and I'm sure the council and the mayor and everybody just wants to make sure that again, a lot of the people that really can't afford an increase have a very minimal increase, right? And I do understand that, Social Security just went up, and I know that the state government is now funding more of the needs of the state. So hopefully, I mean, a lot of these people that do need help are getting more help, and that we're in the pie also, that we're helping them too.
We will continue to be as aggressive as we can be with these unique accounts, I'll call them. The traditional account, you have a water valve, and that really is that's really the motivator to come in and pay your bill. So some unique circumstances to work with, but you have a committed staff. Many of us, including myself, are feeling are going to be part of this rate adjustment, and we understand that it's a difficult decision to make, but given the fact of where we are and where we've been and where we want to be in the future, by way of improving our system, our ability to deliver good services and product, this is a recommendation that we're bringing forward to council at this time.
Anybody else in the public that would like to say something? Mr. Rates?
Good evening, Maria Lopez, 157 South River Road. Thank you for this moment. I really want to ask each member of the council, I want to ask the mayor and all of us to take into account the economic reality of our population. As you were talking about an economic reality of what is this problem, we here in Nogales have segments of our population that are undergoing 40 to 50% unemployment. We already have people that light their homes with candles, that lack utilities, electric and gas, and now water. I have seen water bills within those segments of our population. These are small trailers I'm talking about. A family of 3, 4, their bills are $80. And these are the people that actually practice what it is to go green, because they really save on their utilities. You go into their homes, it's cold. They scarcely use the water. You know, with the segment of our population that can actually pay this increase were the ones that were really going to be paying the increase at a different percentage, maybe I would understand. But right now, Mr. Dilly, I think your proposal is quite out of line for the situation that we are living here in Nogales, Arizona, and that the federal government refuses to acknowledge, much less national and state government. It's up to us to recognize that we are undergoing very, very tough times, and that it's that 9%, 99% of the people that live in this town that will not be able to take this increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Well, you know, I'll be the last one to speak on this before we continue with our meeting under the public hearing, and I'm sure you all know that from day one I've opposed water rates and wastewater rates, and I know the cost isn't tremendous. I know it all depends how you look at it. It just grows with the gallons, like everything else. The impacts on businesses, some of the businesses will get a bigger impact too because of the consumption of water that some of the businesses have. But one of the things that I take under consideration is basically the economy. The economy is very bad. You know, you identified the commodities there, you know, food, gasoline, everything, but the only thing that was missing from that was the cost of living increases, which none of our employees in the city and a lot of people within the community have gotten. And in our city, at least in the last 5 years, our employees. And so those are things that I have a little problem with. You know, what we're talking about right now, we discussed in 2001, and I wish it would have been done then, because it would have been the perfect time. The economy wasn't that bad, the housing market was okay, the credit market was okay, and I was the one that proposed it as the Public Works Director back then. And the council said no, the mayor and everybody back then. And right now, you know, it's hard for me, you know, to look at it and like, you know, in the past times you've been here doing presentations, I have voiced my opinion on this. And, you know, I just have concerns with this, and it's hard. It's hard for me to make a decision like this, and I know the dollars are not a lot, but I know that in the past 15 years we have struggled, and we've been successful in providing the service to the community. And You know, we're doing some infrastructural work right now within the community on our capital improvements, and they're all taking new water systems on our main collector roads in our Via Coronado area under capital improvements and you know, credit, the good credit that the city of Nogales has. But you know, this is the way I feel, members of the council and everybody. I just wanted to let you know the way I feel on this, and you know, if there's anybody else in the public that would like to say something in regards to this, we'll move from a public hearing to a regular council meeting and go into item number 8. Is there anybody? Yes, sir.
Just one more comment. You know, I usually have quoted Winston Churchill, but today I'm going to quote Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. And I see that Mr. Kissinger is wearing a tie, from the Jerry Garcia tie. But Jerry Garcia once made the comment, right? It has to be done. It's just too bad we have to do it. And this is why we're here. And in every one of the meetings, it's a lot of things have to be done. And again, like the mayor said, you know, should have been done in 2001. But here we are now in 2012. And we still have the same problems, and we still have the same ideas, and we still have the same responsibilities. So, and again, that was Jerry Garcia's comment.
Vice Mayor, were you going to say something?
Yes, I will echo the mayor. I am with him 100%. I do not think this is the time for an increase. At least, let's wait one more year. That's my opinion. We can pay it. A lot of people out there cannot pay it. And being like it is, the electric and the gas falling behind, and now another increase, I am not going to support it. Definitely not. So I support you 100%.
Mr. Maria, please just remain standing, Mr. Para.
I know, I understand it's a very tough decision. We wear like per se 2 hats. One serving our people of the city, and the other is to see the future, to get things done, and to be able to do it, to perform our duties, to make the repairs and so forth. And the other one is because of the economical side. I understand it's bad, but you know, we're sitting right in the middle. That's where we're at right now. You know, we go this way, or we just forget about the capital improvements, or get everything done with the repairs and so forth. So it's tough to make a decision like this, because you see both sides of the coin here, and it's kind of hard. So I hope you guys, I don't know, I know that for sure that the first square mile in Nogales, it's the old city of Nogales. I know that everything's governized and all kinds of pipes, so, you know, they're probably getting people sick in that area. So yeah, that's the way I see it. I don't even want to see for the future of our town, or bypass this, or like the Vice Mayor said, just wait another year and bring it up again, see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Para. Yes, Mr.
Like I told Mr. Dilly when I first came on city council, that I wanted no rate increases. I didn't want to spend no more money. We got a budget. We gotta make the best of what we have. Make the best of what we can with it. But there comes a time when you have to do what you have to do. People want good water. They want good service. When you go turn the water on, they want nice clear water to come out of the tap. When they flush, they want it to go away. And if we don't have any money to do that, what's going to happen? Are we going to lessen the service? Are we going to give people bad water or bad service? And we have to look towards the future, and we have to plan for the future. And we have to make decisions that we don't like, but we have to keep on going, and we have to keep on moving forward. And the rates are really not that much, like $2 a month or $2.80 a month. I know it's hard for people right now. We're very hard economic times, but we all have to pull together as a team, and we all have to sacrifice if we want these services to continue at the best possible level. And Nogales will still be the lowest cost in water and sewer in the whole state of Arizona, the way I see it. we are still gonna have the lower rates and provide good service. And I see no way of getting around this problem. And if we keep putting it off, we're gonna be broke. And, you know, as we were told last time we discussed
You know,
this.
Mr. Diaz, one thing that I reflect to, and I've talked to my wife about this several times, is that I remember back in 1998, when we were still considered partners with the county and the landfill, not customers like we are now. Back then, we were partners in the landfill. And there was a cost of about $700,000 that we owed the county on tipping fees that the city wasn't paying, but they were taking all of our trash. And I remember very well then Mr. Rios, the mayor, from the water account, paid the $700,000. Do you remember that, Mr. Warona? You know, we've talked about 15 years ago, we've talked about certain times. I've seen the water account pay other bills. Because what happens is that for 1 year, you might not have issues of repairs, so the enterprise fund pays itself, and there's a little bit there to save up. Did we use the water account to pay something last year?
We did.
We did, didn't we? How much did we use?
400?
400,000, wasn't it?
400,000 around there, 430, 450,000.
To me, that looks to me like we have an account there's money there. So I understand, I understand.
I understand.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, this is what I'm saying, is that I've seen it done. And yes, we'll have bad years. That we have issues with infrastructure. Yes, I know we will. It's happened before. But you know, those are the things I look at. And like I said, I'll reflect back to the economy. The economy is my biggest concern right now.
If we can work with the economy this way, maybe we can impose the rates, let's say like $2 for this whole year, then the following year, $2 more, but not in 1 year, going up in a 3-month period.
But see, the thing is that after 10,000 gallons or 8,000 gallons, every 1,000 gallons it goes up. So if you have 200,000 gallons on a business, well, that does add up a little bit.
Because I was going to say, the way they got it on the rates here, it's like on 212, you got 3 increases.
Yes.
So if I just make 1 increase for 212. And then the following year, another 2. So it will be done in one.
Mr. Mayor, after
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Barra, an increase of $2 is not working with the economy. That has nothing to do. Working with the economy is what is this council doing to bring jobs, to bring new industry, to be creative in creating new opportunities, farmers markets, different things. Mr. Diaz, we need jobs. Now's the time to do it, Mr. Henesian. Until then, can we think about an increase? What we have to increase now is the money coming into the pockets of these families that have undergone 2-3 years of unemployment and their benefits have run out. That's why you show a 16% unemployment, which is not true, because they were taken off the lists. So what we need here is jobs before any increase, because I didn't get your name, I don't think you stated it. Those people that are sent to collection, all we're doing is ruining their credit. Yeah, they're gonna script by and pull together and bring $2,000 in so that their credit doesn't get messed up, and because they need the water, it's of the essence. It's like food. We need to drink water and we need to eat. So I think until this council really thinks of creative measures to bring employment to our community, there's no way that an increase in any of the utilities can be even contemplated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Dilly.
I think Dan had a few comments. I'm gonna jump in just for a minute before he steps up. But you know, I reflect back on the past year past year and a half that I've been with the city, and we've done a lot. In my opinion, we've engaged some projects that were long overdue in terms of engaging, and it's bringing up the quality of life. Those projects were successful because the city had already programmed money for it. But those are specific projects. Those don't touch the day-to-day operations that we're getting at by way of the need to adjust these rates. In addition to looking to the future on a capital improvement program, it's already been set in place. It's already been before the council in terms of what we need year 10 out. I look back on the last year and a half, and I see staff members taking parts from one piece of infrastructure and moving it over to another just based off of need. In reality, in order to totally protect us, we need pieces of equipment in both locations, and not just taking one and moving it and putting it to the other. I see staff going out and trying to repair 80-year-old water lines, and every time they dig in to repair a leak and put a bandage on it, because of how old those lines are, it fragments and breaks in other places, only causing a bigger and bigger problem for the city. I see a downtown that really is in need of improvement on pavement, but you can't touch the pavement until you take care of the utilities under the ground, and those utilities are the big stopper for us. We're looking at that on Terrace Avenue. We look at virtually every street that we own in our downtown area suffers from this dilemma. I got approached over the weekend by people that live in the Valle Verde area. They are our residents. They're in our incorporated limits. We only provide sewer, garbage only, sewer and garbage, sewer and garbage. And they're saying, how come you don't come in and fix our streets? The streets belong to the city, but the dilemma is that we can't get in there and repair because of the infrastructure under the ground. If we're going to improve the quality of life, we have to put ourselves in a position to do that. And these rate adjustments give us a good foothold to take care of that. We talk about creation of jobs. Major investors need what to come in?
Infrastructure.
They look at infrastructure. They want, how close are they to the rail? How close are they to the interstate? And what are the local arterials to get them there? And is there water capacity and sewer capacity? That's what they look at. If we want to create jobs, then we take and we be proactive in getting infrastructure to places that are prime for development. That's how a city that's really is aggressive with economic development and job creativity, that's how a city does it. Basically, it's a turnkey. And you get the infrastructure there, and they come. We're not in a position to do that. We can't even think about doing something like that right now. We can't approach a bank for a loan. We can't qualify for grants because they, one look at our books, one look at our rate structure, and they'll say, just as Mr. Jackson had pointed out, hey, take care of yourself first, and then we'll help you out. I've seen it with USDA, I've seen it with WIFA, I've seen it with all the state agencies that provide these types of programs. They expect the local jurisdiction to take care of themselves first before they'll be willing to do something like that. It's just the reality of where we're at. We have staff that are incredibly committed to trying to do it better, faster, more efficient. Old practices need to be turned around. We're all about that and identifying that. Inefficiencies are there, but in large part our operational inefficiencies in our water department exist in water loss due to either failures in the line themselves or the fact that our meters are so old that they're not accounting for all the water going through them. In order to get in control of that, we have to have the financial means to take care of that business. It's simple as it is. I mean, all of you in your own personal lives can relate to what I'm trying to talk about. It's not, you know, it's just, it's really black and white. And I wanted to make sure that I had those comments out before you as you contemplate the issue before you. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Jackson, thank you for you going. Mr. Dilly,
yes, sir.
The capacity we do have, we have 100 years capacity that anybody that would want to move to Nogales or relocate Nogales, we can assure them 100 years of well-planned growth in the city of Nogales.
Yes, sir, we can.
We invested $2.5 million in the Portero well in the city in the past 7-8 years without a rate increase. $2.5 million. We've been paying for the arsenic in that same area every year. Okay?
Yes,
sir. We've been successful to pay for that without a rate increase. We've been successful in a lot of things, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, we have been.
Okay? We have been very successful with the little bit of money that we have. And that, you know, I can go on and on and on. But I don't want to do that. I'm not here in a fighting mood. I'm not here on anything, but I can identify a lot of things we've done in the past 10 years on the water and with the wastewater. Well, we have a brand new plant. All we need to do is wake up IBWC and the federal government to assist us on that, and maybe we could be very successful in that too. But you know, there's certain things we need to do. You know, if it was up to me, I would put a valve at the border over there and have them pay us rent for that IOI that belongs to us. That line belongs to us. If we tapped into that, we would have a lot of money. Because every time it breaks, it belongs to us. We want to do something and they say don't touch it. So we have issues with IBWC we need to address too. And that's wastewater. All right, there was a check in the mail one time for $45 million for the IOI. I don't know what happened, but I remember very well that was there in 2003 to do that repair. $65 million project, wastewater treatment plant that can assure us the capacity for 15 million gallons from Nogales, Sonora, 7 million from us for our growth and Rio Rico's growth. So there's a lot of things we've been very successful in the past years without water and wastewater rates. So there's a certain things when you do PowerPoints that are in benefit for your rate increase. But if we had to have somebody here stand up and go, well, I'll show you what we've done with a little bit of money in the past 10 years, we could probably have a PowerPoint up there identifying all those projects. So there's ways of looking at this. Yes, sir. You know, and then, you know, like I said, I'm not here in a fighting mood or anything like that, but you know, I've sat down with you, Mr. Dilly, and I've discussed these things with you. And you know, and I know it's a decision time that the city council has to make, and these are the hard times that we have to face as a council. And I really appreciate your presentation that you did from day one to now, Mr. Jackson, and also you, Mr. Dilly. Yes, sir. But I will not say another word. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, all I wanted to do is I wanted to agree with and expand upon a lot of the points that you've made. You and the city has done an extraordinary job over the last 10 years in maintaining a high quality of water and sewer service at a cost that is virtually, if not literally, the lowest in the state. You have continued to run this operation well. You have continued to find some way to pay for your service. And you have done everything in your power to benefit your ratepayers and help them enjoy very low rates. The problem is that you can't do this forever. And there comes a time when you simply have to recognize economic reality and realize that without additional revenue, you can't achieve the goals of continued provision of good service. You can hold your heads high and you can tell your citizens, we did what we could. We did more than any other city. We did everything in our power to keep these rates low. As a matter of fact, when it comes to your low-income people, you have a senior citizens rate that not only is the lowest in the state, it's lower than the lowest in the state. You have a conservation rate that ensures that the people who need the water the most pay the lowest rate for it. The rate adjustments we're talking about should be considered to be an investment in your community. The money that will be gathered will be put back into the community to improve the infrastructure, to make your quality of service better, to attract more investment, and to attract more job growth. But the bottom line is this: you can't sell a product at a loss forever. Sooner or later, there comes a time when, as difficult as it is, you have to make the decision to move forward. And if then the final question is, if not now, when? If the decision is put off, the rate adjustments in the future would only have to be higher, because the system will deteriorate, and the needs and the deficit will get greater, and the needs will get greater. So if the decision is put off, the pain will be harder tomorrow. I appreciate the position you're in. Nobody is going to like the idea of a rate increase. All we ask is people kind of recognize that as difficult it is, it's necessary for the future of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Members of the council, we'll be going into regular session now. This is the end of the public hearing, and we'll be going into item number 8. Consideration and possible action of ordinance number 02-012-01-001. A motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Second, sir.
Thank you very much. Discussion, members of the council?
There's no way to regulate the rate, right?
What I'm going to do on this, Madam Clerk, I'm going to go with a roll call vote, and we'll start with Mr. Diaz.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No, I'm sorry. Hey,
Are you?
we're not,
I'm going, I said nay.
So to go with it, we're not.
no. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
3-2 then, so then it will then be put on the next agenda for a second reading of the ordinance. And then the next item then will be number
Yes.
9, which is a resolution in connection with it.
Yes, sir. Item number 9, consideration and possible action of resolution number R2012-01-002.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Good, thank you very much. A discussion? Hearing none, I'll go with roll call vote. Mr. Diaz?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? The ayes have it on both 8 and 9. Item number 10, update and discussion on joint city and county letter regarding hospital closing of nursing home. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I put this on the agenda because last Thursday, was it last Thursday, Mr. Dillon, when we had the meeting? We had a meeting with the county, even though the county about two and a half weeks or 3 weeks ago had discussed on writing a letter or several letters in support of our opposition and support with others in regards to the hospital closing of the long-term care. And I was at that meeting, and I talked and called to the public, and I asked the county that before they wrote a letter or anything, that we would want to be part of this letter or letters, because I feel that there's stronger support on these efforts if both governments are a part of this, and these are, hopefully this is the beginning of a good partnership with the county and the city of Nogales. So they agreed to it, and in that board meeting, the county did vote on doing the letter and getting together with city staff, Mr. Dilly and Mr. Rivera, to draft these letters. So last Thursday, Mr. Reese, Mr. Rivera, Mr. Dilly, and myself sat in my office and we discussed how we were going to draft this letter. So from the city itself, we're drafting a letter that's been sent to the county for their approval and see if they need anything added. That letter is going to the corporate office of Carondelet. From the county, there's letters going out that they're going to be sending to us that are good for our approval or to see if we want to add anything on our behalf, that will be going to the governor's office, the state of Arizona, the health department in the state of Arizona, and the federal government, and our legislators in Congress. So this is where I'm at with this, and I just wanted to bring this out to you to let you know where we're at with this, because this was an interest of a lot of people in the community, and so we're trying to do our best to see how we could help the hospital and what kind of partnerships we can build with our local government and county government and state governments to be able to, in one way or another, be part of the hospital's growth and stability. So this is where we're at with this. Mr. Dillon, is there anything you want to say about behalf of this?
I don't, Mr. Mayor. I think that was pretty comprehensive. We did meet with the hospital management again this week. I thought that it was necessary to do that in an effort to understand how the decisions being made at the federal level and the legislative level on the state level was impacting the hospital's ability to provide core services to the community. Mr. Rivera and I could sit from our office and write a letter, but unless you really spoke to the issues and the actual actions that our legislators are making, or decisions being made at the federal government, it's really not going to be very effective. And so we did have that meeting, and we're in the process regarding the letter that the county is drafting. We're in the process of collecting that information so that we can make that letter as effective as possible as we send it out to these various state and federal agencies.
You think by the end of this week we should get a return on our letter that we sent to the county?
I actually got a return tonight. I just can't read it from here. So.
Okay. But do you agree with what we wrote on our letter, or did they add something to it?
The email mentioned having made just small changes, but other than that, they really supported it. So.
Okay, so we probably could get these letters out by the beginning of next week?
I would imagine, easily.
Thank you very much.
At least our letter to the network.
Okay. Mr. Parra? Yes.
Do you mind sharing the letter with us?
Yes. Yes. We'll do that as soon as we get it, before we send it out. Yes. And the thing is that the decision that was made at the county is that the direction from the county supervisors were to telling staff that to start preparing it in conjunction with city staff. So that's why we were at that point, Mr. Parra. But as soon as we get this, yes, you will see it, and if there's anything you would like to add to it, we'll take care of that. Maria, will you say something?
Thank you. Thank you again. You know what astounds me? The wheels of government just turn so slowly. I came and addressed this council in November. The 23rd of October is when Carondelet all of a sudden let the families of these 28 residents know that they had 3 months to vacate their 28 ailing elderly people. As you said, this is a core service in our community. And I asked you in November to join with us. You, Mr. Garino, said you would, this council. No letter was sent. I go to the county, and until now, still no letter. I just want to let you know that last week there were only 6 residents left, ailing residents. They have vacated 22. La Oreja, Maria de Los Angeles, died. Yes, she was, I think, 94, but reason she died was because she couldn't get somebody to provide oxygen at La Paloma, because she needed a facility like Carondelet that had the medical services. And for us to be losing yet another essential service in our community, I think that's the last one to go. And how many people in our community need this service? I think at this point, this city has done too little, too late. You know, on the 3rd of February, they're shutting down. And we, from the very beginning, we meaning as a city, as a county, assumed that this is the way it was going to be, and this is the way it's going to be. I am upset at this, what seems incorrigible comportment from what is government, you know, unacceptable at a local level. And I really am interested in knowing and understanding. You said you met with the governor last month. What did she say?
Well, you know, when I talked about these issues with her, the only thing she could tell me that was probably beneficial is that she said that we would see some changes pretty soon with their budget for rural communities. But nothing specific, Maria, that will say, you know, here, we're going to help you on this. That's why we're drafting these letters and sending them to them in support of both governments. But, you know, I talked to her about transportation, I talked to her about the IOI, I talked to her about the hospital, I talked about border security. Talked to her about several things. We talked for about 40 minutes, and but she did, you know, she did say that there were going to be some changes on their budget, and it was going to be good for rural communities. Which last year we got hit really hard. We got hit with $228,000 in our HERF funds alone. So not only us, but the county and all the rural communities in the 13 counties, except for the big metropolitan cities like Phoenix and Tucson. But
did we complain back then?
Oh yes, on the 228,000, we wrote a letter between all the governments, Sierra Vista, Douglas, San Luis, everybody. We all joined as cities to try to complain, and it's our state government basically balanced their budget on the backs of municipalities' education, and municipalities get hit with a lot of money. And education got hit really bad this past year. So we're hoping that these things don't happen again with this new budget that they're working on.
Now, I know this is a county question, but as we are looking at the budgets, I know that there are close to $2 million that are taken from our county budget for what is nursing home. Where's that money going to?
Well, you know, when Supervisor Reese and Carlos Rivera were in my office here last week, we discussed that, and it's actually for every dollar that's sent, $3 is matched, and so there should be somewhere in the vicinity of $6 million that if our county sends that much money on property taxes, that's how much is matched. But right now, the county hasn't identified exactly where it's being spent at. They don't know if it's being spent to people that are Santa Cruz County residents that live up in Prescott and that are at a nursing home over there, and then they tap into our funds over there. So what the county is doing right now is they're trying to locate that, because they were confronted with this, and I guess the county never looked into it until this happened.
Now, is it recommended that I once again go to the county and ask that the city and the county work together to understand where these funds are being sent to?
Well, at this moment, that's what we're doing. We're working on that, and according to Mr. Rivera, the county supervisor, and Supervisor Manny Ruiz, as soon as they get some information, they're going to be coming to us, because I think we have our first joint meeting. When is it? At the end of the month or the beginning?
It hasn't been date specific, but they would like to meet either the end of this month or the first of next month.
And when we have that joint meeting, and these are discussions we're going to have. Mr. Parada spoke with them too, with the county, about these issues, and I think these are things that we need to understand as a city. If the county, I wasn't aware that the county was sending, or the county was being tapped from the state of Arizona for the tune of $2 million for long-term care. And when I addressed that issue to Carondelet, when they came to my office and I talked to the director, I said, do you know of this money? He says, well, we don't know where it's at. And I said, well, is there some item, there's some line item that says that the state is sending you money for our long-term patients? And they couldn't identify it. Mr. Dilly, am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. Mayor, in addition to that, you know, they've set up this committee to look into that and put pressure on the state to find those answers out.
Who's they?
The county. And Supervisor Reese is the chair of that committee. Part of the it's a big unknown, Maria, in terms of where that money goes. Part of the problem is that the county never really sees that money. It's garnered off the top.
Right.
They get a report back at some point in time, but after the fact that money has been taken. They are pretty confident that part of the program of the state is that if there's a resident of Santa Cruz County that is being housed in a nursing home outside of Santa Cruz County, then the county's money is supposed to go and support
that county.
That county. And so it would stand to reason that if our facilities here in Santa Cruz County were housing residents from outside of Santa Cruz County, then perhaps the county would have been receiving money, or those facilities would have been receiving that money from the state. But we just weren't seeing that, and I don't know if we were actually housing people from other counties in our facility.
It's just most peculiar that it gets taken out of our county and sent to support somebody that is actually using the services outside our county.
It's supposed to support our residents
right.
in other counties. That's the idea.
And in this county.
What did the hospital say? I mean, all we were asking for is a year.
Well, I can.
Go ahead. Because you met with them yesterday, before yesterday?
I did. And then I was just going to recount what they told us at that meeting. Maria, this is a service that was being provided by a private entity. It wasn't being provided by the county or the city of Nogales. You understand this?
I do.
And so when they consider their core services in terms of how many people walk in their ER, how many babies are born every month, every year, they have to take their whole venue of services into consideration. And I think that at the end of the day, given the type of revenue that they were not seeing in terms of breaking even on the long-term care facility, they had to make a decision as a network to sacrifice that in order to protect other services that actually affect more people in this whole community. And I think that was in the their response when we asked them.
Believe me, I understand the bottom line, but they're lying. You know, back at least a year, they started getting rid of, they had a lot of ailing residents, and all of a sudden they decided to not take any more, and with the premise that they were going to renovate, they got rid of a few, they sent them away. Of course they died, they never came back, and then until they were down to 28, they had an excuse.
I think at some point in time they've had a study done, or they're basing a lot of their decisions off of a study that showed in order for them to be successful, meaning in order for them to at least break even, I think they used that word break even if I refer to my notes, on the long-term care facility, they would have to have 100 beds filled. And if they don't have 100 beds, then they're experiencing a loss. And according to their report, at least verbal report to the mayor and I, they had been subsidizing the long-term care facility for a number of years. It was this year when that final straw broke the camel's back, and that was recent legislation that affected access, even more so than what it has done in the past. Now, this wasn't the first year that access was hit. Access has been kind of like our HERF fund for the city. It's been affected over a number of years, but this year in particular was apparently the one that broke the camel's back. And they had to just say, okay, who are we, what are we about, and how do we stay in this community as a viable partner in the long run? And according to them, in the last meeting that I had with them this week, they decided that in order for us to continue to be viable and a service provider in the city of Nogales and this larger area, we had to give up the long-term care facility. They are still wondering, it's still a question mark in their mind as to whether or not that's going to be enough. Now, I tried to press them on that issue. I tried to say, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that are you now telling me that you're not going to be here, that you risk we run the risk of you closing down altogether? And they wouldn't give me a direct answer to that, except to be optimistic, at least the two that I met with, optimistic that the measures that they took in closing the long-term care facility, which is not the only thing that they're doing. They're kind of reinventing themselves inside in terms of operations. But those measures, they're optimistic that that's going to be sufficient to continue to be viable in this community.
It's been long known, quote unquote, that we may lose the services of a hospital here altogether, and I strongly urge all of you to press upon what is state government and national government, because these are the side effects of decisions taken. And if we don't complain, if you don't complain on behalf of all of us, of all the residents here, we will see this service, you know, just close up. And I do realize that they are a private entity providing a public service that, again, is so much needed. And I am sure there are at least 100 residents here that need this service. You know, that they chose to go down the route of cutting down this particular one. They're going to have to also work on their mission statement that says,
I read that.
you know, it's silly to have a mission statement that you will not adhere to care for the overall wellness of an individual, and empathy and compassion. It's a shame, and we as a city and as a county should feel very shameful that we just sent 28 of our 80 senior citizens, like I said, to their deaths. But one more question. Can we also have a copy of the letter?
Yes, when we get it done. Yes,
You will email it to me?
Yes, well, let me just let you know on so a part of the letter is that we're also identifying that we hope that a year ago we would have gotten together with them. Say the hospital would have come to us and said, you know, we're facing this. Can we partner? Or can the city and the county and everything? Because that's what we're stressing. When Mr. Dilly and I sat down on this, is because if this would have been in a year in the making, we could have, as a county, as a city and a county, pressed on this. And I'm not saying that it would have been possible to find the funding for it, but we could identify areas that we could have looked for, and areas in the state and federal government, especially in the area of the state with health services. So that's on the letter. So, you know,
Mr. Mayor, at least if that had occurred, if the hospital would have come to the council, mayor council, yes, a year ago or even 2 years ago and said, hey, you know, we've got this problem, and looking down the road, our days are numbered in terms of providing this service. We don't know if our efforts would have changed the outcome, but we would have sat here knowing that we actually were able to do whatever we could to help out.
Yes.
And you know, and that's not what we're able to do right now. And that's a big component of our letter.
But still, we have to send these letters out because we have to identify the problem elsewhere with bigger governments.
Well, you already sat with them, and you know how they operate. They didn't give you a clear response as to whether they will close in a year. But I think this is a clear indication of how they operate and how we must change, how we must be proactive, and how we must put it on the agenda, on the table now. What if they do decide to close? What if in a year they tell us, in 3 months, we're closing this hospital?
That's, you know, the letters also specified that it's written to a point that we expect a letter coming back from them saying, you know what, yes, City of Nogales, let's be partners, let's work on this and make sure that, because we need to be that way, Maria, because otherwise we can get surprised.
Mr. Marcello, I have a question for you. I see lawsuits.
Pardon?
I see lawsuits taking place, like if you get burnt with very hot coffee at McDonald's, let's say. Why didn't we sue them? Why didn't we do something when they only gave us 3 months to respond as a community for us to have our own nursing home? Don't we recognize that this was not right, that they were hitting a segment of our population that is our most vulnerable? It's like doing it to children, it's like doing it to people that really can't see after themselves?
You're right in what you say, but the problem is that they're a private entity, as said by Mr. Dilly. They have no obligation to the city.
But private entities are sued all the time. As I said, private entities are sued all the time for hot coffee being too hot and burning you.
Well, if that's, there are certain causes of action that you can go against them, but their decision to pull out because they're not making money in a private enterprise is not a reason for us to sue them. I wish it was, but it's not.
No, but the fact that they did it on 3 months' notice.
They didn't have to give us any notice legally. And I'm not saying that they acted appropriately or they acted morally, but unfortunately there's no legal cause for the city to force them to be able to do that. Now, had we been in a partnership with them and had some type of contractual relationship with them, then maybe under those circumstances, depending again on the partnership and the contract, there would have been a basis for us to do something in court. But as it is now, we have no legal relationship between them and us. And if they want to move their profit-making organization somewhere else, they can, unfortunately.
It's kind of like the other, you know, when we have the governmental agreements with the county, you know, we sign a partnership to take care of certain issues as both governments. You know, Mr. Machado says if we would have done something, or years ago, you know, when Carondelet was first in the city, and they would have done something with the city, that's something that would probably, we would probably hear about it, anything that they would do, or we'd be part of it, or even probably have a committee that would be part of the hospital's issues.
Now, you're saying this letter will be to Carondelet, it will be to our state governor, and it will go...
The letter that we prepared ourselves here, as soon as the county, I guess we got it, we're going to probably complete it tomorrow. That goes directly to corporate, Carondelet, that's theirs. The one that the county is preparing right now is for the governments.
Governments?
Yeah, which will be the state and the federal governments and the health services of the state of Arizona. Once that's done, once they finish it, they'll send it, we'll see it, and then if we need to tweak it or put our part in it, then we do it, and then we send them all out.
Well, both letters will bear the signatures of both the mayor and the chair of the supervisor.
And they will have the city emblems and everything, so there'd be letters from 2 governments, which I think would be...
Mr. Dilly, did you talk to Mrs., I can't pronounce her last name, Canafity from Carondelet?
That's Debbie.
We spoke to Deborah and to Dina.
Deborah and Dina, and they wouldn't agree to a year? Just out of...
When we met in the mayor's office, we asked if there was any way possible for them to extend their deadline, and their response was something to the effect of the fact that they've been carrying this loss for so long, every month, and I can't remember the number that they threw out in terms of a monthly deficit spending.
To a year. It was $120,000 a month.
$120,000 a month that they were subsidizing this in terms of an expenditure, they just couldn't carry that anymore, and there wasn't a way possible for them to extend the deadline.
And they said nothing to the effect about how much money they've made from the Mexican community in what is Tucson and here, you know, for so many years.
Apparently, that particular service isn't making any money, and so no, they did not speak to being benefited in any way by continuing to provide that service.
Here, but the Mexican community has long been their customers throughout Tucson and here too, primarily.
Well, they're cutting in facilities across their network. It's not just here that they're cutting. So something's changed, and you know, they're experiencing apparently the effects of a sustained recessionary period like everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take about a 5-minute recess.
Just a little bit.
Yes.
Just a question. I think 2 years ago we looked into the Corona. They had a year where they had made $800 million, and the following year they lost $1.2 billion. And I think that's the problem, is that they're not only losing money here, let's say they're losing money across the United States, and they're trying to patch up the holes. Because I do know in Tucson they're closing down several items there.
Yes. I guess we're at a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we're all here. Item number 11, back in session. Item number 11, consideration and possible action to amend city's definition of mobile food vendors. And this is something I placed on the agenda also. I had a meeting, Cesar, Mr. Parada and myself had a meeting with the vendors. What was it, on Thursday, Mr. Parada? Thursday of last week. And I needed to talk to them because I had talked to some of them previously, and I know that there were issues with each one of them, and some of them with their vendor's license, and some of them with their sales tax, and different things that the city's practices have been going on. And one of the reasons that Mr. Parada had placed this on the agenda of the past council meeting was because of a letter that we received from the county. And that letter was specifically saying that we needed to enforce our ordinance on the vendors because of the vendors and their mobile units were not moving from the location and going to their commissaries for health and safety issues. And that's very reasonable, because the county is in charge of everything that has to do with health. The city is not in charge, the county is. Anything that has to do with restaurants, anything that has to do with bathrooms, anything that has to do with sewer connections, the county is the one that is in charge of that. So when we received that letter, I received it in my office and Mr. Dilley received it. We had plans of addressing this issue with the county staff ourselves, but Mr. Parada asked to put it on the agenda to discuss it, so we discussed it. At the time that it was discussed was just to make sure that that ordinance was followed on behalf of our side and the county. But when I sat down and we spoke with the vendors, and I asked all the vendors that are in our list locally in our city, not the county vendors, to be here in the council chamber so we could discuss this, because I wanted to see exactly what they felt that the city was probably doing wrong, and also for me to get more information and to be able to address this issue and probably work on it. And one of the issues that was brought to us was that the biggest concern that they have is that the removal of the tents, the removal of the tables and the chairs every night at 2 o'clock, where the ordinance says you have to remove them from 2 o'clock to 6 in the morning. So I told the vendors that I would place this on the agenda because I looked at it and I kind of studied everything, and everything falls into private property. the majority of the vendors are located in private property. The majority of them probably pay rent to that property owner or that establishment to locate their mobile food vendor truck there. But what I did, I went around town and I noticed there was only 2 or 3 of them that remained on site. All the vendors leave, and they don't wait till 2 in the morning. They leave like at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It all depends on the business. And some of those vendors that leave here with. So, the reason I'm putting this on the agenda is for that sole purpose of the definition of mobile food vendor. The definition for food vendor identifies for a food vendor that is mobile, like with a not a cart, hot dog, or push. There's licenses that from one to another or stick around these people. They move trucks and they're considered. That is common for a big enforcement who have
Ordinance number 02008-12009. I think it pretty much spells out exactly what is expected from a mobile food vendor, right? Again, you know, I understand and I frequent. I eat out all the time, so I go out to all of them, so it doesn't make any difference to me. But again, you know, we also have to consider the people that do invest a lot of money in putting up restaurants. I mean, you know, if we decide to make some empty lots like city parks, you know, again, you know, do these people have to really qualify for everything that a restaurant is? Do they have to put up, you know, bathrooms? Do they have to put up shelters? I do know that in certain cities they will not allow you to go ahead and put up a tent simply because, especially during the winter, because of the fear that they have heaters inside and they might burn. I've been to some of these places where they have the electrical wiring just out everywhere. I stopped going to one place simply because during the summer there's water on the parking lot, and I went there and there was mosquitoes there. I just decided I'm not going to do that. So I think if we, you know, I think it would have to change. We'd have to change the ordinance completely, I mean, to allow it, and then we're going to be getting into another area, a very dark area. Mr. Machado, could you explain here what the ordinance exactly spells out?
Well, the ordinance here makes a distinction between a mobile food vendor and then someone who is a restaurant, somebody who provides food through a restaurant. And as long as the mobile food vendor removes his mobile structure from that, wherever he's selling, along with all other equipment, chairs and all that, then he's considered a mobile food vendor. And to be a mobile food vendor, under our ordinance, then you have to comply with the Santa Cruz County Health and Sanitation Code, which requires that there be no, your mobile food vendor doesn't have any permanent connections to sewer, to water, or anything else like that. If you don't qualify as a mobile food vendor, in other words, if you don't pick up everything that you have there every night and move your equipment, then you become a restaurant. And if you become a restaurant, then you've got to apply with all the other requirements of the health code regarding equipment, bathrooms, and all that stuff. So it's either one or the other. Right now, the definition that we have is that as long as you got a mobile structure, that's number one, but you also have to pick up all your chairs and stuff, tents and everything, and take it with you. In other words, everything goes. Everything comes and everything goes. That's mobile. And unless you change that definition, then that's what defines what a mobile vendor is.
Mr. Machado, on a meeting that I had with the vendors, I found 2 of the vendors that we, the city, allowed them to make sewer connections. We allowed them, 3 of them, to have meters, light meters, and red tagged by the city and permitted by Unisource to have power. In that site, 2 of them with sewer and 2 of them with water. And they're mobile food vendors. So we as a city, and I was surprised. I was surprised to hear that from these people. That's why I wanted to have that meeting, is because I wanted to see exactly where they stood and to see how we as a city could help them. And so what I'm just looking, Mr. Machado, and I'm asking the members of the council, is the definition part of it. You know, that if somebody rents you a little space to come back next day, that, you know, if you put a tent and some chairs, you know. I myself, I don't know how we're going to address the issue with those people that we give them a lateral connection to the sewer as a city. I really don't know. That's going to be an administrative call to be done. I don't know.
See, but once that's done, once that person asked for the connection, the water and the sewer and all, he became a restaurant.
And he pays sales tax.
But he also has to comply with bathrooms and
yes,
codes and the, you know, the
I
stuff
know,
required in the
but see,
kitchen,
but
so
this is the thing. We should have addressed that issue at the moment, knowing that he had a vendor. The finance department sold or gave that person a permit as a vendor, but then they also, this person brought me, I had the documents in my office, they brought me a document where it says they paid for the lateral connection to the city of Nogales. So we ourselves did that. So those are the concerns. You know, you have to, you know, who's at fault here? Is the city at fault? This people? Well, of course, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the city is at fault for letting them go that far with that. You know, my concerns right now is if we were just to change the definition to allow them, because a lot of these vendors will probably remain in the same place. You know, some of these tents are aluminum structures, you know, and all it is just to be away from the sun in the shade while people are eating, and then tables and chairs. And like I said, out of all the vendors, I know of 3 only that remain on site. All the other ones leave every evening. They might leave the little tent there, they might leave that little structure there and come back. Because I think removing that structure at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning, it puts a burden on them, because then they need to have a little bit more manpower to move that out. So that's all I'm looking for. Now, if there's a way that we could do that, let me know right now, and because that's the motion I would like to do, is to change the definition. But the moving of the food cart or the truck, that I understand. That's a county issue, and that's a health department issue, and health and safety. That's really regulated by them.
well, I mean, if your intent is to change the ordinance,
Definition.
the definition, well, if you change the ordinance or definition in the ordinance to allow people to leave their tents and their
Chairs.
that would be easy. You just define the mobile food vendor as a person who has a mobile structure that provides food and so on, without the added requirement that he's got to move the chairs and stuff, right? But that still wouldn't, if you were to change it that way, that would still not change the requirement that he could not hook up and
Yes,
become
no,
permanent.
I understand that. I understand that. I still want to do, because I talked to Mr. Dilly and Mr. Kissinger about that. I still want to know who gave that permit and to those 2 vendors. And you know, the one vendor that has the meter is, you're not going to believe this, Mr. Machado, he's had it for 30 years.
Had a meter?
The Baricotin right across the street has had a meter from Unisource, back then Citizens Utility, on a pole where he pays utilities to every
Well,
That's why he goes to
right.
that place every time.
I'm not
That's
sure
his
that,
little spot.
I'm not sure that the granting of a meter and some place where he could plug in would make him not mobile.
Okay.
But surely under the regulations of the sanitation department or the health department, you can't connect water and
Yes,
sewer.
yes, I understand.
But I think just the plug,
Yeah.
I don't think that by itself would make them non-mobile.
Yeah. But you know, but it still puts you in a position that is your spot. That is, you know, it makes you a little bit more stable as a vendor. He has them on both locations, but the other two have sewer, water, and electrical.
It all depends how you define it. I mean, you could potentially define a mobile food vendor as someone who doesn't have connections or a meter. I mean, depends on how far you want to go.
Because you know, the majority of the trucks that I see that in Rio Rico don't have anything. They move from one warehouse to the other.
Well, that's the intent
That's it. Yeah. But you know, there's a place on the corner of Irvington and 6th, right across the rodeo. Go by there. The trucks move every night, and the tents and the chairs stay there on both tents. Because I eat carne asada there. So that's all I'm asking the members of the council is to allow them to keep the equipment there.
My question is, if this goes down the ranks, do we have a compliance officer or don't we have one? Or do we just have a paycheck somewhere with the compliance officer? This is duty. That's why everything's going upside down in this town because they don't follow any orders, won't follow the orders. And it's one of, if we're gonna blame somebody, we better start going from the chain of command down.
Yes, Mr. Henderson.
Mr. Mayor, also, you know, this opens up a huge Pandora's box because now are these structures, do they meet the electrical code? So that means the city has to go there. I can take you to see some of the structures there. They don't meet any electrical code. They wired it, there's tape, there's everything. Now, we have to check now for electrical compliance.
Well, yeah.
And we're gonna have to check to make sure that those structures don't fall. Because if we go ahead and say, you know, we go ahead and regulate a building to make sure it doesn't fall. So now, what happens if we put that structure there, same thing that happened in Tucson, and here comes the wind, it blows the structure down and people get hurt. Is the city gonna be liable at all in something like this for going ahead and okaying a structure that may not be safe?
Well, actually, it's the property owner that's allowing, the property owner that they pay rent to, is the one that probably would be responsible for that tent.
I think the erection of any structures, tents, and all that stuff would still have to comply with our uniform building code.
Exactly.
If it's applicable, because some structures won't be encompassed within that.
I know the fire department has a code on tents. If the tent is so big, only so many people can be underneath that tent. And the majority of the tents, the tarp itself, has a code from the manufacturer for fire retardant and stuff like that. But there's some of them that have an aluminum canopy over it, and you know, that are used, which are, you know, but they, you know, I solely, you know, I think the responsibility, like for instance, if you own a property and somebody wants to put there, and you say, you know what, I don't want you to put a tent. You can park your truck here, but I don't want you to put a tent. But that's up to you. But most of these property owners have allowed these people to erect the tents.
Yes, I mean, just an example. I mean, I had a building, and some people wanted to rent it. There's going to be 40 to 80 people in the building. I needed an insurance policy from them that if anybody got hurt there, right? I mean, who's going to cover the deal? They said nobody's ever going to get hurt. Well, you know, and let it go. Needless to say, I didn't rent the building. But anyway, again, if we go around and we look at this, there's wires on the floor, which was against all code. If you look at wiring up on top, it doesn't meet anybody's codes. The actual structure doesn't meet anybody's codes. And if they do meet the code, then they become a restaurant. Like I said, they would legitimately be a restaurant. And I do know there's some people like from Las Vegas that does both. They have a restaurant, they adhere to everything, and they have a mobile cart. But But they get rid of it every night.
Yeah, but they have a canopy too, and chairs. That's at the Bedford Street. No, at Bedford Street.
But they get rid of it every night.
No, it stays there. It stays there.
Well,
You know, all I'm asking is to
there's an
change the
ordinance
definition,
here.
but I mean, if there's any legal issues, Mr. Machado, can you please
Well,
express that?
it all depends, if that's what you want to do, is to allow people to keep their equipment there, then that's a change, that's an easy change. And all the rest of the requirements will continue
Yes, yes.
to be applicable.
Well, the rest have to because of health and safety, which has to do with the food.
And building and fire code.
Yeah, well, the building and fire codes, because they need the mobile food trucks have to have an extinguisher, have to have all those things because they're inspected by the fire department, by the fire marshal, because they have a cooking or something like that. Anybody else in this council? Yes, Mr. Jones.
I think as far as staff goes, and in working with legal, we just need to know what direction you'd want us to go, and then we can sit down and make the ordinance amend to the direction you've given us. And if there's any issues, if there's any operational issues or any legal issues, then when we bring it back to you, we're in a better position to explain those and then take further direction from there.
Can we do that?
I agree. I think we're making it pretty hard for the vendors. I mean, if that's all they're asking, to leave the tables and why not? Why not? They're trying to make a living, for God's sakes.
Mr. Diaz?
I agree with Mr. Dilly. They should, prepare something for us, look at all the aspects,
Yes.
what they can do, what they can't do, and then bring it back to us, and then we can.
Well, that's the whole purpose of this. This is not to make a decision right now. This is a decision that once they present it and they work the ordinance and they bring the ordinance back to us for approval, that's when we do it on our next meeting. Mr. Parada, are you okay with that?
Yeah, but meanwhile, this ordinance is an ordinance.
Yes.
It stands in front
I
of
can
this.
understand that. And you can also come and discuss this with Mr. Machado during the process, and so that I figure we can be a little bit open-minded and see what we can do to assist these people. Okay? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I have a few questions here. First of all, Mr. Machado, what is an ordinance and a code? Who wrote it? How long ago?
Well, ordinances are just city laws, city codes.
And this particular one was written how far back?
Well, this particular one was written initially in 1998, and it was amended in 2008.
What was the amendment?
What was the amendment? The amendment, one of the amendments was the definition of mobile food vendor. What qualified as a mobile food vendor.
And when permits are sold to operate, because I am under the impression that Lombrello didn't know that they would, once they set up, they would eventually be asked, that something like this would happen, and all of a sudden now he has to take everything up every night. He was sold a license to operate, and it wasn't explained what the requirements were.
There's no way I can answer that. I don't know what happened in that, when you took it out. All I can tell you is this ordinance was enacted in January of 2008, that particular requirement. I don't know if that was ever explained to him or not. I couldn't tell you.
Well, according to him, it wasn't. But the other thing is, I highly recommend a book called Getting to Yes. Highly recommend that you all read it. It's just wonderful. It's finding the 2 ways to get to yes instead of the 10 ways of how not to go about things. This is about promoting business. And, I've been in many cities throughout different places. And I just so admire New York. They have awesome food vendors that come and go. And the other thing is, or that stay throughout the night. And if we could only think a little bit differently, operate a little bit differently, which our times call for. We have to be innovative. We have to be able to change, because we are already, again, experiencing hunger and desperation. And these food vendors provide an awesome service to our community. I eat there all the time. And as one lady who called the radio station said, you know, many times I don't have enough to go to a restaurant, and they provide wonderful and amazing dishes. And they are also, you know, staying employed and providing employment. And the fact that Paricutin has operated for 30 years tells us something. Nothing has happened, Mr. Henderson, in the last 30 years. And they are connected. I once owned a mobile home. And isn't it more like talking about health and sanitation? Wouldn't it be in everybody's best interest if these people were allowed to get connected, to have water, to have sewer? Couldn't we go down the path of thinking in that manner and changing ordinances and changing codes to meet the times that we're in, and to have that creativity and to come together as a city to allow more people to have these kinds of businesses?
I'm not opposed to that type of change by any manner, but if the direction of the council is what you suggest, then we're going to have to redo it completely.
That's why we're here, Maria.
I really want to commend you for this, Mr. Verino, for pushing the envelope and asking the hard questions and, you know, going down the path of actually creating a change and changing ordinances and codes to meet the needs of our city, of our county. So I highly recommend that you 4 council members go down that path too.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Day.
I really appreciate Maria's comments on this. There's always an opportunity to look at what's outside of the box instead of framing our minds in terms of what's in the box. And you know, in order for us to be successful in making these kind of changes, there's a voice missing in the exercise that we've gone through. There are people that are heavily invested in brick and mortar and have to operate under certain regulations that our mobile food vendors don't have to. And that voice has to be considered if we're going to talk about those kind of changes to an ordinance. I think it's possible. I think it's very possible to have that kind of exercise and that dialogue if that's the direction the council really wants to go. But it is a voice nonetheless that we haven't heard at the table in terms of how they feel about the fact that they're so heavily invested in brick and mortar and operating under those requirements, and our consideration in amending. Now, I'm saying beyond the definition, if we're going to go through a comprehensive on this, how they would feel about that kind of.
Yes, of course. You have to bring everybody into. But you know, Mr. Jelly, one of the strangest things is, and also Maria, that you know, thinking about this over the weekend, I love to see the Food Network.
Isn't it awesome? That program about the food vendors?
Did you see that one?
Yeah.
They go into a park. They go into a park in this one city, and they go, and all the food vendors of that city go into that park, and they compete to see who sells the best food.
Competition
and they make it like every month, and it's very nice. It's, you know, and it's all food vendors, and it's a city park, and they go in there and they you know, they sell the carnitas and barbacoa and everything and hot dogs and.
Competition
When I was looking at that, I said, you know, maybe it's something like that we could do ourselves here. Maybe.
And the other thing, yes, those that have invested in brick and mortar, you know, they do get to charge more, and we all go to those restaurants too. It's competition, and it's giving, you know, the entrepreneur in our society a break, giving them the opportunity to start off in a little place, and maybe they will grow into brick and mortar. I just think competition is the best thing that can possibly happen in any society. So Again, I really ask the 4 council members to consider this.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
You know, Maria, I agree with you, as long as competition is fair. Okay, and I will give you an example. After, when we went into this, I decided to look into different cities and what they had as ordinances. You mentioned New York. Do you know what the ordinance is in New York?
I have no idea.
I'll let you know. They limited, since 1993, the food vendors for a city of over 10 million is limited to 3,110, okay? You can apply online for a license. You can. The waiting period is 25 years. And in 1993, they closed that license. So you can be on the waiting list for 25 years and never get it. Also, all mobile food vendors have to move from wherever they are on the street corners or wherever every half hour. You cannot stand anywhere for more than a half hour. If you're there, you will be ticketed. And they give you tickets all over the place, right? And also, if you are caught leasing a license from somebody else, you will be fined. And have I eaten in New York at one of the mobile food vendors? Yes, I have.
Are we at
And
the
did I
same
enjoy the same
percentages
thing?
yet?
But all I'm saying is that everybody has certain rules and regulations that have to be followed.
Right.
That you cannot put a food vendor, it has to be on a street corner, cannot be in the middle. Okay, you cannot put a street vendor in front of a restaurant. Okay, if you're selling, they can sell whatever you want. They also have another license if you want to sell the hats, right, the caps, the shirts and all that. Those can be put up. Those can be put up. You cannot put them up in front of another store. They have to be put in a certain area, and it has to be moved. Even though they set up, there's certain areas that can hold. If you're selling newspapers or magazines, those can stay there. So everybody has certain rules, and on MSN, they also have the 10 cities with the best food vendors. Right. They do. They do have the best.
I don't think we're quite at the percentages of New York
well,
in terms of food vendors and population in restaurants.
New York, I think it's like one food vendor for every 30,000 people. So, you know, all I'm saying is there's certain rules and regulations, and all we have to do is follow the rules and regulations, because or else we're not going to be able to. And I have no objections on the vendors. We have the greatest example of what happened with Güero Canelos in Tucson. Have you ever been there?
I haven't, but I passed through.
Have you ever eaten on the 29th Street one?
Go.
You've never eaten there?
I'm going.
Did you ever eat when he was a vendor, a street vendor? No, you never gone to the one on Oracle?
I have not.
Well,
I have to spend more time.
That's a great example of somebody that did, right? And now he's opened up another one in Tucson, and they're opening up one in Phoenix, and they're contemplating the thought of opening one up in Los Angeles. So yes, it's awesome, it's tremendous, it really is. But they follow certain rules and regulations, and I think that's all we're adding.
Rules and regs, as long as
it's fair.
As long as they serve a community, that's what they're for. And we really have to see our community with eyes wide open and see how we can move what is economy. And this is certainly a way to move our economy, create more jobs, create more opportunities. That's what rules and regs are for.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. Members of the council, so we're going to go in that direction and direct the city attorney and the city manager on the definition? Sure. Yes? Yes. Yes? Yes. Yes, okay. Unanimously, that's the direction we're going. All right. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much. We'll bring it back to the next meeting. Item number 12, consideration and possible action on order number 2012-01-002.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 13, consideration and possible action of order number 2012-01-004.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 14, consideration and possible action of order number 2012-01-005.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this? You feel comfortable? Thank you very much. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 15, consideration possible action of order number 2012-01-006.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? None? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You know, since we're at number 16, we might as well just go ahead and tell the commissioner meeting that we're just going on consent agenda from now. Mr. Workers. I figured I'd throw that in there, Mr. Dilly. Just for fun. Item number 16, consideration possible action of order number 2012-01-007. Motion? Move?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, second. Discussion?
Yes, if Mr. Machado, I think Mr. Machado put it on legal.
Go ahead.
Council, Mayor and Council, this is an item requested by the Nogales Police Officers Association. It's an addendum to their contract that allows for the payment of overtime in a manner that is different from what is usually done to the rest of the city employees. It includes certain leave time and off time in the calculation of their overtime. And this is only applicable to grants that the state or federal grants that are received by the police department. In other words, this extra overtime and this expanded definition of overtime is applicable only to that overtime that is payable pursuant to those grants and approved by those grants. It won't cause us any difference in the way we operate or cause us any additional money. Is that correct?
Yeah, can I jump in? Sure.
But this is, what basically we're asking the federal government and state government to okay this, is that true? No?
Before we would accept that definition, we have to get a green light from the grantor.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, we're putting it into the contract. It is specific to those specific grants. But before it comes into play, we have to have something in writing from the grantor saying, hey, we accept this definition in your contract to move forward. We don't want to be in a position where we pay out under that definition only to have the grantor come back and say, hey, you owe us money because we didn't really agree to that.
Okay.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 17, consideration possible action of order number 2012-01-008. Wait a minute.
Mr.
We're going to go in executive session.
Please, if we could.
Oh my God. All right. We're going to go into executive session on this. It's going to be quick. It's going to be quick. We're back in session. Item number 17, consideration possible action of order number 2012-01-00, a proposal for consultant services by Planning Center.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
None?
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 18, future agenda items. None?
I had one in mind, but I forgot.
No, that's good, Mr. Hacienda. Item number 19. Item number 19, mayors and council report. Can we waive that one for next one,
You
next
can waive
time?
mine too.
Yeah, we can, and we're also gonna waive Mr. Dilly's manager's report. I know he's got a lot.
Excellent.
And mine is long, and if I start saying it, you guys are gonna throw me out of the room.
Just
Excellent.
Write a memo and send it to you?
Yes, send us a memo.
An email?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned.
Yes.
We'll be going into a